So there's the nutrition matters, and having the right amount of each thing is like a symphony.
That's right.
And even an untrained ear can tell if the drums are off, or the strings are off, And so that's the body. That's we're talking about correcting the metabolism to the point where you feel well and you perform well.
That's very good. Now, they don't teach us much in med school about that. They give us like a day or two of nutritional, maybe a couple hours or 8 hours or something like that over the course of 2 years of class.
I've interviewed, I don't know, dozens, if not hundreds of doctors on that exact subject. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't know, 6 hours, 8 hours. And then you go back and check and it's one,
Right.
Like, yeah. And they missed that day.
True.
And then when you say, okay, so what was the level of nutrition they taught you in that class? Well, it wasn't pre-med. Oh yeah. Okay. So what did they teach you? Well, they taught me how warm the peas need to be in the hospital and how to read a potassium on a blood test. But they don't tell you that there's only 1% of the potassium in the blood. So that's not a good place to read it anyway. So if you're got a loved one and they're telling you their potassium's low by blood test, you got problems that you need to deal with, but they don't teach you that either. So anyway, so that's what I'm saying. You only know what you know because you decided to know it. And that's what I applaud you for that. And I wish every doctor would do that.
Well, I think that's the right answer. And it's like, it's always, it's an interesting unfolding of information, because it's like, there's so much potential to learn. There's like, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's like, you just go be curious and go after it like your life depends upon it, because it sort of does, right?
Yeah. So the concept of superfood nutrition is what I invented that category years ago. And what I said was, I was just really looking through, okay, my wife was going through this thing and I'm trying to fix that. I'm saying, how much vitamin C does the human body need? And you go to the RDA and they go, 65 milligrams. What? My dad told me years ago, my mom told me years ago, I needed 1,000 milligrams or 2,000 or 5,000, depends on what the situation is. How could they be so wrong? And then you start looking at what that RDA actually means. Okay, people go, well, I only need an RDA of 65. Well, what does that mean? That means that if you take 65 a day, you probably will not get scurvy. That's all it means. That's all it means.
That's right.
And then pellagra and all these other diseases. So these minuscule amounts of RDA nutrients that you see are all, over time, they figured, that's all you need of folic acid to not have this disease. That's all you need of vitamin C to not have this disease. That's all you need of vitamin B1 to not have this disease. And that is a much different answer to a better question of what is the optimal amount for human performance.
That's right.
What's the optimal amount for antioxidants? How do you combine your antioxidants so that you get all the classes of oxidants that are hitting your body? You have peroxyl, hydroxyl, peroxynitrite, superoxide anom, singlet oxygen, and superoxide anom, and what is that? Hypochlorite. So you got 6 classes coming after you. So it's like you're rowing your boat, okay? And most people are taking like vitamin C or maybe one other thing. So they may have 1 or 2 or 3 of these areas somewhat covered, but it's like having, 6 holes in your boat, and you only really know where the ones are, the 2 or 3 are, and you're dealing with those, but you don't know that the boat's leaking, much more than you actually are covering. So the antioxidants are like taking a bucket and, bailing out the water as it comes in, but you have to have all the classes. So that's why you need so many different antioxidants combined to play the symphony of antioxidants. And then you have really 4 pillars of disease. So if you're trying to stop any disease, let's just say cancer, for instance, these are almost all cancers: inflammation, oxidation, glycation, angiogenesis. So if you can figure out how to regulate those 4 processes, you can theoretically stop the continuation of the disease in which you are working with. And so there's a lot of literature out there saying, hey, you can actually stop these processes with nutrition even better than with the drugs that are coming out. Because there's a lot of money being spent in anti-angiogenic drugs or anti-glycation drugs. And there's a lot of money being spent, but those drugs are not yet even as good as berries and some of the other natural things that we use to quench various antioxidants. So there's so many things we can learn, and we can always take it to another level. Like you said, once we learn one thing, we go, wait a minute, there's a whole nother subject now I got to study. I got to study, wow, 6 classes of oxidants. Now I got to study the classes of antioxidants and how they work together. And so it's called, when you use an oxidant, like, I don't know if you ever saw the studies on beta carotene with smokers, that they would end up with more disease. They would get worse.
Okay.
And so you ask yourself why. It's because once an antioxidant gets spent, it becomes an oxidant. And so you have to have what's called a self-reducing system of antioxidants, so that when one scavenger takes an electron off of one and makes it unstable, that another antioxidant comes by and donates another one to keep it stable. So it's called self-reducing. So living fuel, all of them are designed to regulate those 4 classes I told you about, plus all 6 classes of antioxidants, plus restoring the oxidants once they become unstable. And so it's a very sophisticated way to look at nutrition.
Absolutely.
But then you got to say, okay, then also we have nutrition in there for all 12 major body systems, all 12. And so when you start looking at the types of nutrients, the kinds of nutrients, the combinations, how it works together, it's truly miraculous how it finally came together. And we're now in our 19th year. I'm sorry, we're in our 18th year. Our 19th year is coming in March.
Time's a wasting, right?
Yes.
That's awesome, man. Quite an amazing feat. Quite an amazing feat to even learn about it.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So it was my wife's story that had me, meet all of the top clinical nutritionists and functional medicine guys and all the people you could name from, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So that's how I started, because of my wife. And the more I learned, finally one day I said, you know what, Monica, I really am not enjoying putting 100 pills together for you to take over the day, and also mixing all the stuff in the blender. And I can't even find the great stuff. I can't find the organic version, the non-GMO version. I can't find what I want. And so I said, I'm going to make the perfect food. And she goes, you do that, honey. And so really over a period of a year, when I finished, literally we had it delivered to our house from the docks. We thought worst case scenario, we'd have a lifetime supply for our family. And the same day my daughter Grace was born, we call her the grace of God. So the same day, 18 years ago, March 25th, 2002, the company was born and my daughter was born. And by the end of that year, we're in every state in the United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, Guam, and Puerto Rico. Because we make a level of nutrition that has not ever otherwise existed. And even 18 years later, there's not a close second to Living Fuel.